Two. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Unique Genius in 33. I've got to say that I'm pretty excited today with who we have with us, with Mr. Jeff Ottman in Tennessee. He's going to talk to us today about his deliberative. And I got to be honest, I can't believe that we actually are winding down our series. This is one of our last 4 episodes that we've got. So hopefully you've had a chance to hear everything we've had to say and who we've been able to interview. So Jeff, take it away. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and share your top 5 with us, would you?
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it, Joe. My name is Jeff Ottman, and I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. I've worked 20 years for a company called Holiday Properties. We are a 250-person organization, primarily headquartered in Indiana, Tennessee, and Florida, but we have offices as far west as Minnesota and Kansas City, as well as northeast as far as outside of Boston, and southwest or southeast as far south as outside of Miami, Florida. So my primary role in the company is leading our healthcare services division. We're about 100 people in this division. We provide a host of real estate services around brokerage, leasing, management, maintenance, engineering, accounting, finance. I can go on forever. Fixing stuff, making sure tenants are happy. It's a feed and medical office in different capacities throughout the country. Again, mostly Tennessee and Florida. And so my top 5 is adaptability, strategic, deliberative, relator, and ideation, or what I call a super duper raw idea, which is my way to remember it. So those are my top 5. We did engage, utilize the strengths training and through the genius here in the company to chart kind of a new cultural course about 3-4 years ago. And it has really benefited the organization, especially when you're a service group where, you're kind of taking complaints and needs in on a daily basis, and leveraging your strengths and understanding where other folks are coming from and their perspectives was a key component to utilizing this in our culture, and something that we value very much.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. Yeah, I find that strengths is a fantastic support for culture and just creating new dynamics, within teams and everything in the organization. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here today. So as we always start off, we always start with Gallup's definition of the talent. And for Gallup, people exceptionally talented in the deliberative theme are best described by the serious care they take in making decisions or choices. They anticipate obstacles. Now, we also love to celebrate and evaluate. So celebrate means we're going to look at what's really great about you and deliberative. And Jeff, you can let me know if this sounds about right. You are vigilant in most every situation. You easily play devil's advocate with good intent, seeing situations from multiple point of view. You are conscientious and thoughtful, and you measure risk carefully and move forward accordingly. Does that sound about right?
I would, especially vigilant and being conscientious. I think those two ring really loud with me when I think about my decision-making process. Vigilance goes to listening to what's happening within the organization or with individuals. And you can start hearing concerns or issues pop up before you know it if you have enough experience. And then what decisions or actions should you take to mitigate or improve those situations? Obviously, conscience plays into that play. So you may want to fix something fairly quick, but if you may not be thinking what's going to impact the next person or next individual or the next client or tenant, in my case, down the road.
Sure. So definitely not going for Band-Aid fixes necessarily, but really getting a little bit deeper in there and making sure that it's going to fix things long term, right?
Yeah, I do. I think the deliberative part first has to answer the question: are you in a triage mode? Right, which is the Band-Aid. And then if you're in triage, what kind of deliberative steps are you going to take there while considering what your longer term options or choices could be?
Excellent. I love that triage mode. All right. So now we all know that our talents can have a little bit of a raw side, right? Or they can trip us up from time to time. And so some questions we can ask ourselves to double check is, am I afraid of being wrong? Am I playing devil's advocate just to be contrary? Am I holding others back with my cautiousness? Am I unwilling to trust decisions to others? So how do those sit with you, Jeff?
Oh, being wrong is the thing I want to avoid the most, right? I hate making the wrong decision and potentially putting people on a wrong course. And especially what I do, a lot of it's based on people. Like I work in real estate, but my job is really about working with people. My role is working with people.
Sure.
And so when you think about making the wrong decision, I'm impacting individuals. It's not like I didn't clean the parking lot correctly at the medical office building.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Here, it's like, if I created a dynamic with a staff or with client that is not bearable, right? Or not the answer that they need. So the other one in there is being contrarian sometimes. The second one that you mentioned too, which kind of came up as you said it, was that happens often to me. And when I'm discussing, people come to me and they want my opinion. I'm telling them all the stuff that's wrong with what they're thinking about. And they're like, oh, I'll never go back to Jeff again. He's absolutely useless. He just tells me how wrong I am. Screw that guy. I mean,
right.
And that's not what I want. I mean, that's not the kind of relationships I want to build with people.
Right. And it's nice that when people know that about you, that they go to you for those reasons so that they can avoid potential, problems or things that could have been avoided down the road. Right. But yeah, if you don't know that, you're like, man, that guy's a party pooper. He's just going to rain on my parade. Right. Like he's just going to rain on my parade. I don't want to talk to him. Yeah. I think restorative can be like that too. Cause I have ideation. Right. And so anytime you come in, you're like, this is amazing. Would you have ideation? So I kind of love that, but you go and you're like, this is amazing. And he goes, I don't know. What about this? What about this? What if that happens? What if this? I don't know if I want to do it anymore. But, and I love the part when you were talking about being wrong is I will say that when the people I've encountered, both people close to me and just other people I've worked with through my coaching experience over the years, deliberative is the talent I find that really, really does hate to be wrong. They want to make sure that they have the time to ensure that they're making the right decision. And like you said, because it impacts others, it's not just because they don't want to be wrong, it's because they know it'll have an impact somewhere down the road. And they don't want that responsibility to land on their shoulders because of something they missed. Right? Or didn't consider.
Correct. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so we talk about certain talents, like, responsibility will tend to make a promise and give their word, right? But responsibility will be the one who feels worse than anybody else, really, if like a promise isn't complete or they can't do something they said they would do. I think we all maybe feel bad about being wrong, but people with deliberative really take it to heart.
Oh yeah,
right?
No, I do. And when you think of how deliberative plays with my other strengths, number 4 is relator, right? Sure. So the last thing I want to do is let people down that I really truly care about and are part of my, my inner circle. And that's, it's very, it's interesting because deliberative is my governor to my other strengths, quite honestly, in my mind. I mentioned adaptability, which as we know is crisis moment, loves to do it, figure it out right now, let's go. Number 2 is strategic, which is kind of planning things out. What's the path? What's the thing?
And being able to shift.
Yeah.
Right.
And so he's like, let's go fast. Let's think about it. And then deliberative is like, wait a minute here. Let's kind of figure out what's the most important thing going on. What are the things like strategy? I know we got to think about long-term adaptability. You got to answer. It's a triage thing again.
Right.
How do we move forward? And let's not hurt anybody we really care about along the line. So the only difference is ideation is just my playground. That's where I lock myself in the office and just think about stuff for a few hours. But that's deliberative is my governor to my other strengths. Is the way I look at it. So.
And I think that's such a powerful combination. And I love how you use that, that deliberative is that governor, right? It just kind of that keeps things in line with where they need to be and to be a little bit more thoughtful about whatever you need to be thoughtful about, right?
Yep.
So what do you love, since that's a lovely way to think about your deliberative, what do you love about your deliberative?
I love that it frames. It gives me options, I guess, is what it is. It frames for me what choices I can look at, what steps I can take. It helps me quite honestly, it helps me craft the strategy, right? Usually I'm I know where I want to be person, and the strategy I work backwards, and then the deliberative kind of helps go back forward, if that makes sense, right?
Sure.
So if I know where my vision's at, I think I know the steps I want to go there, and then I kind of validate what those steps are in my head as I'm fluctuating between the strengths to get to the path.
Right.
It is something that shows itself. It's probably one of the more naturally occurring strengths in my thought process that I don't I'm not aware of all that often, I should say.
Right. Okay. So if we flip that side around, where can deliberative get in your way or trip you up? Where does it cause issues?
What they call Charlie Brown wishy-washy, right? And so I think wishy-washy can occur, and that happens in scenarios where I'm not comfortable with what's occurring or the facts, or I don't have necessarily the skills or talents to evaluate a specific situation. And then when deliberative has identified that there's no comfortable choice that it's aware of, then I just kind of stop, and there's a bit of a freezing point, right? So the people around me will go, what's taking so long? Why are you not proceeding? Why are you not more bold? Why are we not taking more direct action? And I just need more processing time when that happens to evaluate the scenario.
Sure. So I can certainly see where, a lack of information or full resources would, cause you to want to pause the process a little bit. But I think it's very interesting that you said also when you can't find a positive outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That will also delay your process if you're like, but none of these decisions is a nice decision.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't believe in, what is it? The zero sum. I don't believe in zero sum, right? Zero sum, there's a negative and a positive that offset each other in a course of action. I try not to believe in those. So. Right.
That's very interesting. I like that insight. So how have you seen deliberative kind of throughout your life? How do you recognize it? Even before you knew it was a talent, how did it show up when you were, a young boy, a young man?
Yeah. So I'm glad I thought about this in advance, because it took me a little while. And I realized that it was really as a teenager, trying to have fun as well as avoid trouble from either my parents primarily, students, or I'm sorry, the school, and or the law enforcement, but we won't comment on that in any way, shape, or form. So, and it was in the 80s, and there was a lot of interesting 80s teenage movies, none of them that we'll do, and I really wanted to experience those, but just on a more protective basis. And so, if you were going to have let's say a celebration at your house, we won't go into details. That then you only have a handful of guys, and that they're only coming over and they're staying the night, and their parents are well aware that they're staying the night at your place, and you're going to have a lot of fun, and nobody's going to go anywhere. And so, to me, that is ideally, that's really where I saw deliberative show up. How do I stay out of trouble and still achieve what I want to accomplish? So
still have some fun. So fun within limits.
That's right. It was fun, but I was experiencing young life without getting in trouble.
But I love that there's a risk analysis, right? There's a full risk analysis, and there's okay, if I do this, what am I potentially going to lose? What am I potentially up against?
Yep.
What are the consequences if this happens this way? Right?
Yeah, and quite honestly, I felt, when I look back and I think of my friends and peers at the time, I did better than most from a not getting in trouble perspective. So, yeah.
Sure.
Not the Jeff guy. No, that Jeff guy, he's the nicest guy ever. I mean, he's great.
Well, it's good. You had a great reputation out there then.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see. I don't know. It's
cautious, thoughtful. It could be counted on, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. So with deliberative, certainly, we've talked about a couple of the downsides that can show up. What would you want other people to know that don't have deliberative high? We've talked about this a little bit, that my deliberative is way low. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, look, there's a target over there. Let's shoot and see what happens, right? My activator can get out there. I can plan a little bit, but at some point I need to learn from my mistakes. What would you want someone to know about deliberative that might help?
I think, I would hope that people would recognize that the patience that's happening in the thought process is intentional and methodical, and is really trying to consider alternatives, or again, avoid obstacles in whatever the person's proposing. And if I was in front of a deliberative person and I saw them kind of internally processing and struggling with that path, I would probably begin asking questions to draw out, what are they thinking? What are the obstacles? What are they feeling? What are they concerned about? Such that you could then have a dialogue back and forth to determine, are those really an obstacle? Do you validate it? And then collectively determine what's a better decision, right? Or option.
Right, right. So be open to that conversation and to know. Now, I also know that, because you do require a lot of time, how do you balance, I've got kind of two follow-up questions. How do you balance your need for time versus other people who need to get things done based on the information that you're providing? How do you manage that?
Well, adaptability helps quite a bit in that area. My top strength shows up frequently in my life. And again, like deliberative is the governor. And so time, normally what happens is deliberative will really govern me when it's a significant situation, right? I think I have enough experience, especially with the same company for as long as I've been in. I have a lot of experience that I can evaluate quickly what's occurring. And then generally, if I'm not comfortable with where adaptability goes back, then I just have to process. It just takes me time to process things, and I have to find space. I have to create space for myself to do that. And so, it's a struggle. It can be a struggle. So one of the things I've started doing is spending more time away from the office to guarantee me the time that I need to think through things. Because here, when I'm in the office, events, needs, questions, communication are ongoing throughout the day.
Sure.
And like my normal operational kind of matters, I actually try to meet and do all that communication within the first day and a half of the week, which gives me the balance of the week to have a little bit more contemplative time or execution of specific tasks, right? So, there's a long-winded answer, but
no, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And I have another follow-up, because this just kind of tingled for me a little bit, because you mentioned patience. And I am patient in some ways, but not patient in other ways. But when I'm especially thinking of parenthood, how do you see deliberative sort of helping you? Because I know you have kids, you have boys, right?
Yeah, no, I do. I have two teenage boys. I have a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old. And for example, so here's a deliberative situation. I hope none of my kids' friends watch this ever. But my oldest son, and I think really quite like most teenagers, a lot of their social interaction is occurring over the internet or games or whatnot. And so he works and he plays sports and he comes home and he's on the games or he's communicating. And I'm kind of like, could you go out and go socialize in person with anybody and people? And so deliberative is, I had an opportunity to recognize him for a good game that he played one night, football. And on the way home, I stopped and I got a gift card and a little card where I wrote him a note and told him how good I thought he was. But the gift card wasn't like for Five Guys. It was for Cheesecake Factory. And so you're not going to take your buddies to Cheesecake Factory, right? You're going to take somebody else that you probably want to spend some more time with there. And so there's deliberative, like in the home model,
Right.
Right. That's a recent example that would come to mind.
All right, cool. Okay, well, thank you. I was just kind of curious about that, how that shows up for you, because, like I said, with my activator, patience with my child is not always the best things.
Yeah,
And so,
no,
and I
I
can
had,
imagine deliberative also would affect, for that cautiousness, the risk analysis, and especially having teenage boys, that there's probably a double-edged sword there.
I adjusted my expectations long ago for what,
I'm guessing adaptability helps you in there too, then, right?
Oh, well, it's, if you want, it's kind of like if you want a happy life, you want to have a happy wife. I mean, that's the saying, and not to say that that's specific. My wife works very hard, but you have to adapt. You're right. You have to adapt to the situation, and I grew up in a family where the house was clean from top to bottom every day, and it was kind of like new sheets and all sorts of stuff. And I realized a long time ago with two boys that wasn't going to happen. And so if we could just let me get the dishes cleaned and wipe a good wipe down and vacuumed on a Sunday, I'd be happy for an hour or two. And then you just adjust. You have to
Right.
adjust to the situation. So
right. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So famous person, fictional character, who do you think really represents deliberative kind of the way you understand it?
Yeah. So this was my preparation work here caused me to think a lot about that, and I have two answers. I'll give you my first answer, which goes back to my youth. Spock, right? Okay, it's Star Trek.
Yeah.
I used to watch the Star Trek reruns younger as a child. I mean, from elementary school all the way through high school, and even occasionally now on one of the channels. And Spock was a very logical person. He was always measured in his responses to Kirk and the crew, and he knew exactly kind of what he was going and the information that he had. So that was a very deliberative type of situation. More recently, there was two movies I watched, and one of them was Dunkirk, which is about going over and rescuing the British soldiers from the French coast there. Right. And the other one was Churchill, okay, which was similar time. And I really enjoyed kind of both movies, especially the Churchill movie. And I know it didn't necessarily have the best reviews, and there was questions around some of the historical accuracy. But Churchill was not he was not necessarily a favorable leader politically, okay? The king was not really he was kind of not all that happy that they had put him as prime minister, and it was kind of like a choice. That was a deliberative choice to put Churchill into that role. Right. He had a lot of different people with different positions around, including people who wanted them to kind of ignore Germany and even prepare for surrender. And you think about all the different roadblocks that he had to go through to get to a successful solution, right? If it was working with the United States of America, or being prepared not to work with the United States, or it just, I don't know why it came up in thinking about historical figures, but Churchill came to mind because I really had no interest in Winston Churchill prior to the movie. And I found myself very intrigued about learning more about him after that. So.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. And especially, obviously, like you said, he came up a lot of challenges. I mean, he had to do some very careful, deliberate consideration because of the impact his decisions would have.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Especially at the time. And certainly was not always making the popular choice.
Yeah, he was, they described him, he was the right wartime leader, but he was not a peacetime leader. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Just getting the political side, I would agree with that. So, final question to kind of look through this. And Teresa, if you have a question for Jeff, feel free to throw it in the chat or pop yourself back up so you can ask what you would like to ask. But kind of the final question on our side is always just a general question about strengths. How have you seen strengths, improve your life personally and or professionally? What are the positive effects you've seen of knowing your strengths?
It has had a great impact on me as a person and as an individual. It gave a description to my personality and the actions that I take at work. And more importantly, what strengths did for me was when we sat as a group and we discussed each other's strengths. And I mean, my leadership team and a greater organization, we did some intense sessions where we sat there and understood about each other's strengths and how we saw each other show up in our interactings. And all of a sudden you had a very different perspective of how to work with someone. Okay. Where you might find a situation of frustration, you also identify that's not really if you had that guy with deliberative who can't make up a decision either which way he was, right? Or you had someone who was analytical and they just were constantly churning over the data, or Harmony, which just wanted to get along with everyone. We all get along. But what allowed me to do is, in my position, was able to, I recognized who they were, what their strengths were, and then I was able to interact with those people personally or in the execution of our services or with our clients, right? I had met a couple of years ago, we had a new client come on and they had a lead individual, and that person exhibited similar strengths and background as one of our key folks. And my intent was I was going to be the client primary day-to-day relationship person. And as soon as I recognized that I was not the right person to communicate with him, I then connected him with one of our folks, and they've had a great relationship ever since. And so it's really benefited to me. It's given me a voice to understand who I am and the people around me. It has helped me understand myself better than I ever have in my entire life. And I really mean that. It's also identified the things that frustrate me that I really couldn't identify before. I love my adaptability and I hate my adaptability at the same time. And but it's the thing that has made me successful. And so as my responsibilities have changed over the years, I've had to understand how to tune those different levels. And so I'm very pleased with what Strength's done for me as a person, as personally and professionally, and what it's done for the company, our company. So
great. So you've seen a difference in the culture and just how roles are played out and.
Yeah, no, I do. And there's different levels of acceptance within the organization, and I get it. But we're in our third year here we're entering our fourth year of the Strengths kind of culture implementation, and I know where we were before, and where we were before was of kind of a failure focused, what's wrong with me orientation. It was always about, yes, you screwed up. Now can you just tell us how bad you screwed up? Now it's about what can I do the best in the best manner that I can, and I wholeheartly embrace it. It is something that has had, like I said, it has a great impact on me as a person.
Do you think, this is a side question, but it occurred to me. So you said, with individuals and things like that, what you would look at, and you take that sort of from a performance appraisal, perspective on that side. But would you say as a company from a company's purpose and the way a company makes decisions, do you now look at what you're doing great as a company to do more of that versus maybe you were looking at what you were not doing right as a company before?
Yeah, there is a little bit of that. We're talking about how I think what we do really well is have relationships with the tenants, like just the personal relationships. It's not just somebody there on site at the medical office building or buildings or campus who are just taking complaints, right? There's a proactive thing. Yet we encourage people to go and have an interaction with the tenant, make them smile, right? Listen, it's always good to help somebody. Now, not all the time they're going to be happy, but it's an encouragement, right? Because it's hard for a member to hear a complaint day in and day out. The only communication you have from Dr. So-and-so, which is primarily our tenants, is going to be a situation where they have an issue, right? And you are the person that they want to complain to. And the truth is, you're the person who can solve their problem and make them feel good about it.
I love that reframe. That reframe. That's a great way to look at customer service in general. Right? Although I know it can be a very tiresome job when that's what you're doing, but it takes a bit of a special personality to do it. But I love the reframe of that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Our managers out there in the field who I absolutely respect work really hard to maintain those relationships, and what they do is critical.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, this has been lovely talking with you today, Jeff. I absolutely love how your deliberative shows up, how adaptability plays into that, how you've got this, sort of governor that, leads over your other talents. I think that's a really beautiful way to express that. And so thank you very much for sharing that with us today. I think it's been very insightful and very useful as well. And I want to remind everybody out there that we only have 3 more episodes left after today. So we've got some fun stuff coming up for you. Be sure to tune in on Wednesdays or download later. That's okay too. We just love that you're listening. And we also have our mini podcast out there. You can listen to us on Alexa or iTunes or on Podbean and get your 1-minute daily dose of strengths out there as well. So thank you so much for listening today. Teresa, you popped up. I want to double check and make sure. Do you have a question before we sign off? All right. Just wanted to make sure before we sign off. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate it, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.